Welcome to What's Important to You, the podcast where we explore purpose, passion, and the moments that truly matter. I'm James Dean, and each week I sit down with inspiring guests to uncover what drives them, inspires them, and what's important to them. What does it take to walk away from a defining chapter of your life and rebuild with honesty, resilience, and courage? Today's guest shares a deeply personal journey of leaving Opus Dei, facing past wounds, and using writing, reflection, and self-discovery as tools for healing. Now, with over 30 years of leadership experience, she helps others navigate interviews, career transitions, anxiety, and confidence, empowering them to recognize their true value and step forward authentically. Today, we find out what's important to Anne-Marie Allen. Hi, Anne-Marie. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, James. How are you doing? Thank you for inviting me onto your show.
No, really looking forward to this. Pleasure you're here. We're going to dive straight in with the first question, which is, as always, Anne-Marie, what's important to you?
Thought about this question quite a bit. And I think that question, or the answer to that question, changes according to your life cycle or where you are in life, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think at this stage of my life, and at this moment in time, it's real resilience, but with true honesty. You know, you can get through things, but you have to be very honest with yourself, don't you? What is actually happening, what is really happening here, and what is happening to me, what is happening to my values, what's the real challenge here, and how am I going to face it? But it's about honesty, I think, true honesty in all things as much as possible, I think, and speaking the truth. I think at this point, and honesty is really important to me at this time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the fact that you recognize that. And you're probably the first person, actually, I'd say, when I've asked the question as the first question of the show, that says that changes, that what's important changes depending on where you are in your life, your circumstance. I think it's dependent on age, it's dependent on where you are in your life, whether you're focused on career, whether you're focused on family, whether you're focused on, how things have developed and grown throughout, could be a number of years. So I think it's really interesting, the fact that you kind of like recognize that as the first thing, that it's and realizing about what it's right now. And so you say, so at that moment when you're thinking of it, that perspective, truth and honesty, or talking that, what's the sort of reasoning behind that for this moment in your life?
I think that maybe for a lot of my life, I've lived in silence about something that happened a long time ago, and maybe some things that happened in my life. It was buried, it was not spoken about, it was silenced, there was shame, there was guilt associated with it. And I think I retired from the public service maybe 8 years ago now, and I had that time and that space to think about my life and to think what had gone well, because despite what happened, many gifts, there's never anything that happens to you where there isn't a gift, a golden nugget that comes out of it. So I had time to think about that. But I also had time to think about things that hadn't gone well and what I had learned from it. And I had time to think about the stuff that was not addressed. And I remember one time saying, this is the end of it. I'm not going to carry it anymore. And I remember burning some documents I had in the fire. And it was a bit of a ceremony, and I said, put that behind. But then I remember 3 weeks later, something happened that it all came to the fore again and was to stay with me. So I then said, okay, I need to face this. I need to do something about it. And I need to start talking about it. I need to start sharing it. And it just has, it has just kind of blown up really. And there has been many gifts along the way with this as well. But I hope that answers the question that you're asking, James.
Yeah. So no, yeah, I mean, I think because so many people have spoken to me talking about whether it be, truth or honesty or a certain word, they use a word to describe something that means something to them. What I find interesting is how we arrive at that place is different for everyone. So, because it could be the influence of a parent, it could be influence of a colleague or a teacher going back, or
many times, like in your circumstance, it's as a result of an experience. And whether it's a positive or a negative experience, that you come to a point where you say, as you say, you say you had to face it. And that's kind of like when that's sometimes a hard one for people or ourselves to acknowledge, is because it's usually the thing that we don't want to face is something that's going to get us to a place that's freeing, but we don't know that before we face it, isn't it? You know what I mean? You can't see the other side until you've gone through whatever it is you're having to go through, isn't it? And that's the kicker. That's the hard bit.
That is the hard bit. And sometimes with some of this, I was blaming myself for how I was or how I had been formed. And I kind of had to really sometimes, no, actually, something serious did happen here.
Mm.
But for years, I thought it was me. I thought it was me. And can I explain what that is?
Of course, please. Yeah, no, share it with me. I would, yeah, you share as much as you'd like. I'd love to hear.
Okay, so at the age of 15, I came in contact with an organization called Opus Dei. It's a Spanish organization, it's worldwide. And I went to do a catering course there. And I was recruited, and I was charmed, and I was told that I had a vocation to become an assistant numi, which would be, it's a hierarchical organization. But basically, I was told that I had a vocation as big as a house, to serve as a domestic girl, as a celibate for the rest of my life. I was told that they had seen it, and I believed this. I believed that. So look, it's all in my book.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not here to
Yeah, no. We'll go
quote.
into that. And
It's all outlined in the book, but it led to 7 years of being a member of Opus Dei or thereabouts, and really being formed in the way they wanted me to be, which was according to the founder. His name is Escriva. He had very, very strict guidelines on how this assistant numi was to be. So I lived a life of servitude, working 14, 15 hours a day without pay, living in a centre, dressing in a uniform, behaving in a certain way, being told and formed and coerced really to live this life. And I truly believed what I was told. But then little things happened where I was kind of saying, this isn't all it's cracked up to be. And eventually, with the help of my dad in particular, I left at the age of 22. So it took 20 years of trying really very much on my own. There was no people like you and I, James, executive coaches or life coaches, to help me navigate that chaos, that trauma. So it took 20. After 20 years, I kind of started that I needed to find myself for the first time. I needed to discover who I was, what I stood for, what my values were, what my skill set was. So I went on a voyage of discovery, really, but it was all done by myself, really. And yeah, so that's the journey in brief.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I've got to a place where I'm happy now.
Great.
Yeah.
And you showed the book there, and in relation to, can you just show it again for us so we can see the cover and the name of it?
Serve.
Okay, lovely. So was that, by writing the book, was that kind of part of your way of understanding what had happened, dealing with it, working through it? Did that help in that way? Was it a process in that regard?
I heard this phrase, I thought, when you're writing a book, you write from the scar and not the wound.
Okay.
So when you write from the wound, it's an angry book. I do feel people have said it's an angry book, but an awful lot of the healing had been done.
Okay.
All right.
Gotcha.
So I wrote it from a truth point of view.
Yeah.
To tell my truth. So that was very, very important, to bring awareness about this type of thing and about
Sure.
coercive control and so on.
Sure.
A lot of the healing had been done through my own through my own ways of trying to face up to who I was, what I was about, and trying to form that. Now I was in my late 30s, early 40s when I started to do that, which is much later. People at 21, 22 know what they're all about and, know their goals in life. I was much, much later because of this huge delay in my development and my self-development. So a lot of the wounds, now that's not saying that little little cuts along the way
Mm,
emerged when I was writing the book.
sure.
And again, huge awareness about what happened to me. Again, it wasn't my stuff I took for granted, you know. And I just give you an example of that. One of the
Yeah.
things was in Opus Dei, we had to mortify ourselves. And that was in the form of wearing a chain on your leg for 2 hours a day, and then whipping yourself on a Saturday to a prayer. All right. So those of us who were in Opus Dei and that we left, there's a few of us that are in contact, and we'd say, "Sure, look."
Mm,
And then somebody said to me one day, recently enough, "That's not normal."
mm,
And I said,
yeah, yeah,
"Right, and it didn't do any harm to us." And, but it did. It did.
yeah.
It did, because it was institutional um, self harm that was approved from. And I suppose it didn't. I suppose when we were using it, it didn't answer back. It didn't.
Mm,
But it actually, it was quite. It was self harm that was approved
yeah.
from the top. So yeah, it's little. Well, that's not little actually.
No.
Things like that. This
Yeah.
little writing the book has helped me become aware of what happened to me and understand.
Yeah.
I think telling a story as well. There's other friends of mine that are ex-members, and they go into the theory of cults and they do all of that. My my healing came to telling my story,
Yeah.
breaking it down, trying to understand what happened, discussing it with other ex-members. Actually,
Yeah.
it's just been the fast track. People have gone through similar experiences, and that's where the fast track to healing really happened.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, thank you for sharing. And that's what I was just, when you were talking about it there, and the way you said it is writing from the scar versus writing from the wound. But I think one thing is that I think of any of the book that you've written yourself and people who've written similar books about their own experiences, real life experiences over the years, is there's so many things to it. One of them is, you say, the story has to be told. Do you know what I mean? It's like, this is the truth of these things need to be shared. And this is the phrase at the moment, as well as like, this is my truth versus their truth versus our truth. You know what I mean? So from the other side of it, like, but oh no, anyone can try and justify their means as such, you know what I mean? And rebuttal. But your story is what happened to you. So it is true. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it is. But it was, even when you're just saying that, even just the example there of what's one of the things that you were prescribed to do in relation to, and I'm going to assume now, as a, because it'll get you closer to God or what have you, by doing these things, the sort of sense self harm. What I thought there, and then you could correct me if I'm completely wrong on this, but it's like, to me, I just thought of like someone who's like an alcoholic or someone who's misusing drugs are doing something because it's almost like they have no other way of, no, they don't know another other way of doing it. It's like they know was there any point of you, this is a question then, is like, did there at any point during it you thought it was wrong, or had they coerced that much that you actually believed what you were doing was right? Can you remember back to that point in time?
I believed what I was
Yeah.
doing was right. Absolutely. When I left then, this idea of mortification and mortifying yourself,
Yeah.
mortification was done to control your bodily desires
Yeah. Right. Okay. Right. Okay.
and to offer your pain up to God. God did it on the cross, and Screva,
Right.
he broke his flesh. So you're kind of thinking that you were on that level, you know.
Right.
Uh, but
Yeah. They're very different.
afterwards, you kind of, when it came to mortification, you kind of thought you were to continue doing it.
Mm,
And it's only in recent years, I think, that I've realized this was very wrong. And sorry, I think a question you asked me earlier
yeah.
meant the answer that I meant to
Yeah.
say was that I truly believed I had a vocation to as an assistant numerator.
Right.
With all of my education and with all of my life experience,
Mm,
because they told me. And then one day I was
yeah.
in my kitchen, of all places, downstairs, and I said, "Sure, I never had a vocation. Sure, I was told. I never saw it. I never believed it. There was no sense that I wanted to be this. I believed these people because they were
Mm,
educated. They were very what I thought was very pious, and because they said they saw it, and they
Mm,
told me that if I didn't follow my vocation, that I would go to hell. You know,
mm,
it was totally ingrained in me. But it was only in recent years and writing, maybe before I wrote the book, that I realized I had no vocation. I never did. You know,
mm.
so things creep up on you, creep up on you over time as you reflect. I think that's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah. Yeah, and absolutely. So yeah, so my initial image in the sense of doing that is kind of wrong because it's like, so in the sense of what I was thinking, Jesus, it's like someone doing to themselves without the knowledge in some ways, or doing it because but yourself, it was like the awful thing in that situation. Just one of the examples you said of them, it's like they had generally got you to believe that this was not just the right thing to do, that you were by doing it, well, you were going to get some sort of positive outcome of doing it. Like they'd really had sort of, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of, it would take you a lot of time to unpack that, work through that. I'm sure there's a lot of element of you said, I think one of the words you used at the very start about shame, it's like an element of forgiving yourself to that you went there. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot to sort of work through in that regard.
Yeah, forgiveness is a subject that a few of us are discussing at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, they're saying, will you forgive them or will you forgive the church or whatever?
Mm.
Uh, I don't think I will ever forgive,
Mm.
and that's not a bad thing. But if I am to forgive, the first person I have to forgive is myself,
Yeah,
and I'm
absolutely.
not there yet. I'm not there
Okay.
yet.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
And again, if the person you're forgiving needs to say, I'm sorry, the
Mm,
person that you're forgiving needs to say, I think there needs to be a discussion, but
mm,
will probably won't happen. But I have to forgive myself first. And it's a little bit at a time, little
yeah.
bit at a time. And what I'd be forgiving myself for would be ever being maybe weak enough to be coerced, weak enough to be taken under
Mm,
their grasp, coming from a poor, dysfunctional background, having a vulnerability, being innocent and naive. All of that I have to forgive myself for all of that because that made me a target, a very easy
mm,
target, you know.
mm. Yeah, yeah, no.
So yeah, it's
Yeah,
a long journey. I'm not so
yeah,
sure if I'll ever get
sure.
to forgiving them. I'm not so
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Can I ask you in relation to then the book, how recent did you finish or write the book?
The book was published in June of 2005.
Okay.
The book it's a super read. It's can be read in one or two sittings.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was the and it has been. I met somebody the other day for lunch. They were up till 3 o'clock in the morning finishing it. Uh, And it took about 10 months, and Gill
Yeah,
Books were very brave in publishing this. It's the first of its memoir of an assistant numerary. So there's different grades in Opus Dei. So there's
yeah.
numerary, supernumerary, associate, and so on, and priest. And we were the lowest grade. And when you were to leave Opus Dei, you were told you were never to speak about your
Mm,
experiences. You know, bad things will happen to you and to your family if you speak out, and so on. So that's why it's taken this long. But I'm the first assistant numerary in the world to write a book about this, about my
wow.
experiences as a servant in the
Yeah,
organisation.
yeah. Yeah. So it's, yeah, I mean, it's just thinking there, like, and this is slightly not out of context, but in some ways that there's this thing with the I find with the show that I have this. Have you ever heard of the familiarity complex, where you'll the example you give is like, oh, I'm thinking of buying a new car, and it's like, I drive a Kia Sportage, and I was remember looking at that car before I bought it a couple of years ago or a year or so ago, hadn't looked at it at all. And then all you can see is that car. As soon as you start driving around, you just see the same thing that you weren't even looking at.
Yeah.
And it just comes up and up. And in the last few week or so, the people that I've been talking to on the show have had an element of faith or religion within their stories and within their lives. But the other two people that I spoke to previously, it was coming from a place of very much in love with their sort of faith and their religion, how it helped them and supported them and has driven them. And it's the fact that you're the complete opposite side of the coin. And I think it's an example of how anything and most things in life, there's always the two sides or
Yes.
more. That the experience that one person can have, how it enriches their lives, how it gives them a purpose and a sense of belonging and being and striving, and how on the other side of it, another person's experience can be the complete opposite, and how it can create these elements of shame, vulnerability, coercion, whatever, you know what I mean? So it's a quite a stark opposite in a sense of the two conversations I've had previously, and it's just as important. And what's striking so far from you just chatting to yourself is the fact that obviously that something happened to you, and it's not to say that it wouldn't, you're still working through it. It's the fact that it happened so long ago in your childhood, and you're still working through that process now. It's it's this is the thing with so many things when I talk to people on the show is whatever we're dealing with life, there rarely is an end point to anything that we're kind of working through or working towards. It's where we think, as you said, oh, I burned the papers, I'm done. And then, a few weeks later, something else comes up. You go, oh, shit, no, I'm not done at all. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Back right into it, bigger than ever than before. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm interested now. So I'm sort of going back and forth, but when you say you came out at 22 and obviously to where you've got now, what was the first things you do? What did you do? How did you sort of even just get back into being a 22-year-old at that point in time?
Hi, James here. If you've been watching and thinking, I would like to make a change, but not sure where to start, that's where I can help. My 12-week coaching program will enable you to reconnect with what matters most and move forward with clarity and confidence. If that sounds like you, head over to jamesdeancoach.com. Now let's get back to the episode.
Well, I was a 22-year-old with the mind and experience of a 15-year-old,
Mm,
Mind that my school friends had all moved on. Some of them were married and were parents, and they. So it was the people I started to hang around with at the time. They were a bit younger than me. I'm still very friendly with them today,
yeah.
which is great. And they really helped me through that time. But I felt there was a honeymoon period, which was great. But then my social interactions and all that, and my trauma started to affect me really very, very
Mm,
much. So, but one thing that kept me going was that I didn't have an education, and so what I did was I went back to school, and I went back to school by night, and I funded myself through. I did the Leaving Cert in the School of Commerce in Cork, and one thing in Ireland here we have is a great nighttime education system. Even at that stage, it was the 80s. So I went back to school. I did my Leaving Cert, and then I did little courses, micro courses, uh,
mm,
and then I joined the public service. I joined the Irish Prison Service, which was it was easy set of transferable skills from an organisation like Opus Dei, following rules and regulations, hierarchical organisation, wearing a uniform. I fitted in
yeah.
perfectly, and but so then I went back to school. I did my degree, I did my masters. I travelled quite a bit. I got a lot of life experience, but I was in turmoil. I was outwardly doing okay, but inwardly I was really, really suffering from my trauma, and interestingly, while I was in the prison service, you learn about prisoners' human rights and all that.
Mm,
And it was there that I realized about my own human rights, that I had them, first of all.
yeah.
I had them as a woman, I had them as a child, and how they were breached. That was the one
Mm,
thing that really, and prisoners were there, they were getting educated, they could see a doctor on their own,
yeah.
could visit their families could visit them, they had contact, and most of that I didn't have as an assistant numerary because I was
Yeah.
closely supervised and all that. So then after about 20 years, I think, of turmoil, I woke up one day and I was okay, and I started then, I suppose, the whole thing of trying to find out who I was and what I was about, And I suppose I had to start again trying to form this person who I was.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm sure you know about the circle of life. I did it on a course and I looked at, spirituality, career finance, fun. Fun was one place. And
Yeah.
where I rated on it, and you marked yourself from 1 to 10.
Yeah.
And that, I know it's a very simple exercise, but that was the start of a big journey.
Yeah.
So then and of course the questions when you're doing the circle of life is very important. What is working well? Why is it working well?
Yeah.
And then if you're down low, which came to fun, it was low. And, there was a lot of maybe self-destructive
Yeah.
behaviors there, like partying a lot, not looking after myself health-wise and so on. Um, and that maybe was at 1.
Mm.
That kind of had to change. So I remember I was doing a course. I can't remember what the name of the course was, but I remember setting goals for 12 months. Those goals then had to be broken down per month. Then those
Mm.
goals, it was a to-do list, but it was all
Yeah.
about your values drove you. So then next thing it came down to you had to do your goals per week, and then you had 3 goals per day. Now, I know they're only to-do list and everything, but that really changed. I did that for 3 years solid, and I improved my life, improved my fun. I was going to things I really wanted to go to, and do.
Mm.
My friendships, my family relationships really improved. My financial situation really improved. I then set out a 5-year goal plan, achieved everything, blew it out of the water. And so on. Did another. I don't have one at the moment because I'm just, I think but that goal setting, that to do list, but driving it with your values and your dreams,
Mm.
really honest with myself. That really helped me over the afterwards, but it was all on my own. There was no coaching, nothing.
Okay.
Yeah, there was nothing like that. I did it cold turkey, as they say.
Yeah. Yeah. So what then? Because that's what you're into now, and obviously is qualified as a coach, and you help people in that. So what then brought you into this space? How did you discover this world, if I call it?
Yes, well, yeah. When I was in the Irish Prison Service, I was in the training college, the Prison Service Training College, here in Portlaoise. I was there for 6 years, and I got to help people in their careers and in their
Mm.
training and upskilling and so on. So I really liked that side of things. So then I did it on a voluntary basis with a couple of charities, in Leinster. And then, I realized that I had the skill set but the huge interest in people. Because when I look at how I reached my own potential without help, I was saying,
Mm.
what can other people do with help and support?
Mm.
So when I retired then from the Irish Prison Service, I did a HDIP in executive coaching with the IMI, and I set up my own little business, AMA Coaching Solutions. So I do career and leadership coaching, but I really focus on, here I am doing an interview coaching.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I help people at all levels, graduates, new entrants into the public service, private sector, and promotional interviews as well. So yeah, so that's what I do, and I've recently become an accredited firework career coach as well. Yeah, so it's just magnificent to see people
Lovely. Yeah.
bloom and thrive, and you know bring who they are to the interviews, and yeah, that's a
Yeah.
major
Lovely.
gift, really.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll talk about the interview piece in a minute, but what's the last one? The firework. What's that?
That's a 12-week coaching, or sorry, a 12-session coaching program, and it helps people really pin down what they want to do in their careers, and so it's over 6 months, it's every second week. So yeah, that's kind of a new aspect
Mm.
to my coaching. Yeah, yeah.
Love it. So the interview one is a very interesting one, actually. I think in terms of interview coaching, because I'm sure it's changing constantly. We know the world of work is changing constantly. So have you seen that in any way adjust or change when, people coming for interview coaching, or is that still quite solid in a sense of its framework when people going for interviews?
Well, there's all different types of interviews. There's
Mm.
the coffee interview. There's the
Yeah.
face-to-face interview. There's the Zoom, and And then there's a presentation type interview and stuff. As
Mm.
such, it remains the same, you know,
Okay.
the process remains the same. What employers are looking for is what you can do for them.
Mm.
You know, that's what they're looking for. So people will say, for instance, sometimes when people come and say they join the public service or the civil service and they're saying, oh, I want a permanent pensionable job. You know, you have to coach and say, well, we know that, and I know that, and you know that, and it's great. It's great decision making. It's great forward planning, but you need to tell them what you're bringing to
Yeah.
them. So, for instance, a girl came to me. She was a childminder. She was minding 4 children, and she was doing this for a long time. So she went for the answer she was going to give. Why do you want to join the civil service? And she's saying, well, I want a permanent pension job. So I said, no. What skill set? I've none. I've only been minding 4 children. I said, hold on now a second. Crisis management, timetabling, negotiation, forward planning, being calm in stressful situations, handing over information to parents or whatever. So I said, you have a huge skill set for being a child man. So trying to coach people into realizing what they can bring to a job, that takes a lot. And getting away from, oh, I want a permanent pensionable job, or I'm
Mm.
bored where I am, or, you know, I saw who was promoted and I can do better than them. Those are
Mm.
answers that
Yeah.
don't wash anymore. But, you know, it's trying to get people to understand the values of the organization
Yeah.
and that they need to be a cultural fit for that organization, you know. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
And is it so? Do you work on a basis of they've come to you and they're preparing to go for that particular interview, so you're kind of guiding them on that process, or do you coach them as well in relation to the type of job they're going for, or is it purely the interview?
Well, there's two types. Well, the career coach
Yeah.
type of coach, they need to kind of tease that out
Yep.
after a while. But with the interview, no, it's purely presenting themselves at the interview.
Yeah.
And yeah, how they turn up and their
Mm.
mindset, you know, they're interviewing for the they kind of need to step into the shoes of the person that's in the job at the time.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So if they're
Yeah.
going for EO, they have to kind of present at the interview as an EO, you know,
Yes.
and use
Yeah. Yeah.
those management verbs and so on. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's interesting because it's again, it's that it's easier. Sort of the third thing is easy when you know how, or that sort of it comes normal if you sort of you're seeing it from that perspective. But it's the person that you're helping in that situation or coaching that situation. Is you say the example you have of the childminder there is getting through to persons to recognize their own abilities and their own value and their own skills, their own what have it for whatever they've done. It's the biggest thing, isn't it, to work with someone who dismisses themselves before they've even started because they use the phrase, as you said, I'm only a childminder or I'm only XYZ. And it's like that's what a part of what you do, but that's not who you are. And it's trying to get to understand a person to understand is like you're putting yourself at a disadvantage before you've even gone into the room because you're believing against something and only limiting yourself to this one perspective versus seeing it as a wider of, and as you say, it's like, how can you, as that individual, help the company, organization, team fulfill what they're trying to do?
Their strategic goals
It's
and so on. Yeah.
exactly, but it's so much of it is about the one element is say, because I'm sure it's like, you don't want to just, it's not fake it till you make it, because that's, you will get found out, I think, in some regards. But it's an element of like, getting that person to understand of like, no, the things that you've done in your life to this point in time will and can help you, that organization. You just haven't been seeing it in that way.
Yeah.
Does that make
Well,
sense?
yeah, and I'd have many women that are returning to the workplace,
Yeah.
force back, and they'd say, "Oh, you know, I've really done nothing." And then, you
Mm,
know, when you delve deeper, you know, they've been a carer, they've managed children, their own families, they've got them all through college, they've probably been on a couple of committees, washing jerseys for the local GA or soccer
yep.
team or whatever, and they've been
Yeah.
really juggling a whole mind of, and it's how to but to reframe that going into an interview, but getting them to believe.
Yeah.
It's that mindset, and you have to go in and I use the thing, Usain Bolt, if he's on the starting line and he says, Asher, look, Asher, I don't mind if I get first, second, or third. You're telling them, what do you want to say? Well, we will have to, that you have to believe that and say that to yourself and keep saying it till you believe it. Record it on Zoom, say it in the mirror, write it up on a sticker and put it on your mirror.
Mm,
Believe that mindset. You have to get it in there. It's that growth mindset that you're trying to, yeah.
yeah. No,
Um,
absolutely.
Also telling, we talk about telling the truth. Yeah, they need to tell the truth at interviews.
Mm,
Don't have that experience, they need to say it. They can, because interviewers are seasoned campaigners. They've been interviewing a lot. They see discrepancies very quickly. So be very honest and say, yes, I did this, or so it's yeah. So I think that needs to be said as well. Another thing about job interviews, people need to read the job description and know what they're applying for. Because an interview question could be, what is the job? What's the understanding? And my experience is that people come in, they say, well, I think it's this, and it's only what they think it is. So that's just a little interview tip there.
yeah, no, absolutely. No, you did it without me prompting you. And I think there's some really valuable ones. I think when it comes to things like that, with the interviewing for roles or jobs, and that it is those, as you say, like the basic fundamentals haven't changed, even though the world of work is changing. In the end, it's still so much of it, I think, is still coming down to how you're able to communicate with another human being, and how are you able. And it's hard because obviously, if you're going for a job and you really want that role or want that, it's like it's hard to kind of separate yourself out of it in some ways. But there is an element, I think, sometimes where you have to present yourself in that moment in the best way possible without the pressure of the outcome. That's the hard thing. It's like, if they hire you, they hire you. If they don't, those are the two options. They hire you or they don't. Those are the two outcomes that will come. So it's hard to sort of like, you have to almost put that as something that I do not have control of. Let go of what may or may not happen, and think about, how can I be the best of myself in this situation? As you say, I always think it's like, answer the question.
Yeah.
It's like answer the question that you've been asked, be truthful and honest. I think I've done it a few years ago, since I in a previous career, I was doing interviews, and I know my better half is constantly doing interviews for the place of where she works and interviewing people. And I think there's a little bit what we talked about before we came on the recording. I'm a very odd podcaster in a sense of like, I do a little bit of research on my guest, but not a huge amount, because when I started this, I was trying to preempt the interview, and I would have all these notes, and I was going out, but I do quite an open interview. I don't do pre-planned questions as such. And I was looking, I go, but they haven't mentioned all these things. And I'm like, I'm not focusing on the interview versus listening to what's being said. So I think that's what people struggle with. They really want to crowbar something in
Mm.
that they think's really, well, I need to say this, I need to mention this. But the question that was asked has nothing to do with what they're trying to crowbar in. So it's like, answer the question without trying to, I've got to show off. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a lot of coaching around that as well. But so, just what I try and coach them, if it's very important for you to say that, let's link it to one of the competencies
Mm,
or capabilities required for the role. If you really want to get that in, if you feel,
yeah.
I'd say, why is that important, or
Yeah.
whatever. So yeah, I try and get them to identify where they could bring it in if it showcases their skill set for the interview. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. But it's like, but it's like, don't hang your hat on it, because you might not need it. You know what I mean? They want to see you. They want to know about you, as you say, and turn up as yourself. I love it. So so you say, is that the main part of what you do in your coaching practice?
Yeah, that's the main part of what I do in my coaching practice. Yeah, and yeah, it's great, and I really enjoy it. And it's getting a lot of results.
Yeah.
which is great for people. It's great to see people's lives transform. So I've people that have come to me for their going into a particular role, come back to for their second promotion, their first promotion,
Okay.
their second,
Yeah, yeah.
and their third promotion. And then
Wow.
sometimes maybe they need to go to, they've come maybe for again, and I would say, look, maybe I've brought you to where I can bring you. Maybe you need somebody at a higher level. I would recommend somebody then.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's
Int
great seeing families, people, clients of mine would say, my family are so happy and so proud of what I've done and all that. So that's brilliant. So it's a huge
yeah,
impact. Yeah.
yeah. And is it mainly women that you work with then in that regard?
No, young and old.
Okay.
Not so much women lately, which is interesting, but,
Okay.
yeah, so and a lot of graduates. Have a lot of graduates lately as well.
Okay. Okay, that's an interesting. As I said, that's an interesting. Um, I wanted an interesting dynamic because the fact that people coming out of graduating now and the world of work that they face versus when I graduated, God, nearly 20 years ago from university. What do you think that is it different what graduates are experiencing now and what they're presenting in with when they're going into coaching?
I don't see that.
Interesting.
I think they're a little bit more. I think they're a good bit more confident, we'll say. Now, I'm a bit
Mm,
ahead of you,
yeah.
but a lot more confident, and are able to name their skill set and their values maybe, and kind of know themselves a little bit better.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm getting a different type of, I'm getting somebody that's a graduate, is doing well, and is a
Yes.
high achiever anyway, and
Sure.
still looking for help. So
Yes.
I'm aware that there's a portion of the population that I'm not getting.
Sure.
So I just
That's
sometimes need to keep that in mind as well. Yeah.
yeah. That's interesting though, I think, because and the reason I asked the question because I do personally get quite frustrated sometimes with the generational labeling that we can get into of whether it be young people, older people, whatever, Gen Z, Gen X, millennial, boomer, all it just gets so tiresome and boresome to me. It's just that they're just people. It's like everyone has their own experience, everyone has their perspective. But what I do think with that sort of cohort now, that group of young people who are graduating and the people come behind them, there's an element of more information that's obviously readily available. And if you're going through sort of university or that sort of age now, coming out of it, the concepts or the ideas of mindfulness, well-being, coaching, values, they're all much more familiar phrases than you would have had before. I think the first time that I would have really known about the word values would have been them on a poster in a company that I worked with. It was company values. So that's the association of values initially was company. It was only really when I was sort of doing my own sort of reading into personal development and then I went on my own education within coaching that I realized about, well, we've got personal values, we'll have family values, and not in a sense of that sort of, you know, cheesy, oh, these are the family values. I mean, genuine, the genuineness of values. So I think it's an interesting that information is available. And as you say, if that person, if they've already tapped into it and kind of at 22 have an understanding of what's important to them at that moment in time, that's definitely going to be an advantage to them, isn't it?
It is absolutely, and these are people that are graduating with 1-1s and so on.
Yeah.
It's the cohort of clients that come to me and mommy and daddy have planked them in front of me. Now
Mm,
they're very interesting. Now
yeah.
confidentiality, I can't communicate with the
Sure.
parents after that, and you have to be quite clear about that. I don't take anyone under 18 years of age, but
Sure.
mommy and daddy have said this is to happen. There's a bit more work there, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah. That's a that's an interesting dynamic for sure because as we would know as a coach is like the person in front of you has to be coachable and willing and ready and all this sort of stuff and so that's a very interesting dynamic I suppose for yourself when you that person presents. And how do you find, obviously barring obviously not disclosing anyone's
Yeah.
confidentiality, how do you find those interactions go in that regard?
When you start maybe, the coaching questions, tell me, who are you? And tell us a bit about yourself. That question alone, it's real Irish. Tell
Yeah.
us a bit about yourself, and you're
Yeah.
trying to whittle that down to an interview answer, and it can be they're very shy. Mammy has said you're to do this, and they're under a bit of
Mm.
pressure, and you just tell them, look, I'm on your side. I'm
Mm.
completely on your side here. So I'm a bit relaxed and all that. But they get very, very self conscious and stuff like that. And
Of
then
course.
I might see them again for a second session. And when I see them then for the second session and they've reflected on the points we've discussed and all that, sometimes don't recognize them because they come on the screen and they're confident, they're blossoming. They're saying, "Well, I didn't realize, when I was playing on the team and there was a bit of bullying going on, and then I stood up or whatever, or I did this at school, and their achievements." And so you just kind of, it's just amazing. I sometimes don't even recognize them physically. It might only be 2 weeks later
Yeah.
because they have, um, I suppose they've grown in confidence and so on. But
Mm.
I really enjoy those interactions, and for the most part, they nail the interview.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely.
That's even
Yeah.
better again.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I was just thinking there, obviously, for that example that you just said there, but I think there's the challenge, I say, for a lot of young people, and there's that sort of graduate age group as well, is that we know in Ireland, especially, and across many sort of countries, is that that age group is still having to eventually live at home, still living in their childhood bedroom, still, and the dynamic has obviously shifted. They've been at university, they're older, it's like they're no longer a child, they're out of adolescence, they're growing into adulthood. And again, it's like, it's only through reflection. At 22, you do think you know the world, and then when you get to 30 or 40, you go, shit, I didn't know anything about the world. But only through reflection. At any 22-year-old, you do know your world at that point in time. So, but it's harder, I think. Like, when I think back now, like, because I went to uni when I was 18, and I was different countries. So I was like, that's when I moved out of home when I was 18. You know, after that, I spent, I think, the most in my parents, or then in my wife's and girlfriend's parents, was less than a year after I graduated before I found a flat or whatever that I had the opportunity to do. So I think there's a harder element for this, I think, for young people at the moment, because they're trying to grow, but then they're in a space where it's hard to grow.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult for everybody involved
Mm,
and parents possibly need coach
completely.
in how to deal with that as well, and how to plan around it, and how to maybe help the teenagers or the young adults become autonomous, responsible human beings. So in terms of an interview, you can reframe all of those experiences for an interview. Like I've had
Yes.
many clients, and they will say would live in 2 counties away from the university, and they'd commute every day. So at
Mm,
an interview, I'd get them to say that I self-funded, I drove from my family
yes.
home and so on. But yeah, young people have a lot. They do, the structure of interviews has remained the same as such, but the answers are very different, and their
Yes.
lives are very different in how they live it. And yeah, there will be a lot of look, there'll be a lot of adjusting for people in their 30s and their 40s when they get their own homes
Yeah.
and that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. I'd say with the as you say, the interview structure is I arguably stayed the same, but obviously the answers are going to be different
Yes.
because of people's experience is very different. And I think the the other point, I think, to say, where you those people who come to you, who kind of have an idea, like they know who they are, they've got these sort of ideas of values, they are high achievers in the world of academia and things like that. They kind of, in some ways, they have it a little bit together. They're just trying to get that last piece together. I think as well that those people, and as you say, it's interesting, you get repeat. I'm going now for a promotion. I'm going for a second promotion. I think those people as well now, because they have that more knowledge earlier about their own personal well-being, their own personal sort of autonomy, agency, all these sorts of things, these terminologies. I think those are the people as well that once they get into an employment will have almost higher expectations of their employment as well,
Mm.
because they're not going to be hoodwinked into just getting on. If they got that ambition. So I think it's also that element of to keep going. Do you know what I mean? There's always, and so they to keep going back for the next thing, because if a company, I think this is where companies are going to, it's slightly different from the interview question, the interview coaching, but companies will struggle to keep people if they don't enable these people to keep growing once they're in. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think when people, I think that's very insightful. I think that when people do interview preparation, or when they prepare for a role, either with a coach or themselves, they kind of go into the role in an advantage, because first of all, they have the mindset.
Yep.
And they know the role inside out because they've read the job description and they have prepared for it, so then they're kind of ahead of the game already. So I've guys coming to me and they're not thinking, they're thinking, oh, I'm going to nail this, but he or she is aiming for the next promotion. Sometimes you have to manage the expectations of that in coaching and so on. But ambition is out there. People are very ambitious. There's a lot of people going to a lot of different coaches for different things. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think
No.
it's all about improving, bringing our best to the table. In America, when the wife is saying goodbye to the husband, saying, go out and, you knock it out of the park and all the rest of it. In Ireland, it was saying, oh, take it easy. You're going to work, take it easy and all that. I think that's changing a bit. I think people want more and they're achieving more. But then they're changing. They're say, this isn't working for me, they'll go.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
one thing, yeah.
Yeah. The other one, actually, I was just thinking there, because it's from, again, talking to my wife and her experience of being on the other side of being the interviewer. One of the things that I think frustrates her, and I wonder if this comes up from your coaching perspective, is when the company says, oh, do you have any questions for me? So I don't know if you have any tips or suggestions about that part of the interview for people.
Yeah, it's always a question that comes up. Well, I would say, and this is just a personal point of view, that if you've read the job description entirely, you know it inside out, and you've already prepared your competencies in your example in line with the job description, I think asking a question about the job kind of exposes you a bit. I wouldn't ask a question for the sake of asking it. But so I think asking about the job, maybe how many positions are available, or when will I know the outcome of the interview? Maybe something like that. Not at entry level. I think, or promotional level, I think as well. But then sometimes if you feel you haven't covered a point, I feel I didn't address teamwork well, can I just maybe add an example? I think you can clear up maybe some little messes you might have made. But I wouldn't go into a whole pile of detail. But then, I'm very cautious about it. In America, I think they expect you to ask 4 questions, or else you're not interested. Here, keep in mind, many interviewers, especially in public service, are retired. They might be able to answer the question. But I'd always add in, can I add in some further information? So that's where you sum up. Yeah, I think that's important. For instance, you might say, I feel I've the knowledge, skills and attributes to bring to this role. I feel I've got 20 years leadership and management experience across 5 sectors, and you break it down into numbers and you present it. But a 2-minute little, I think 100 words a minute, 200 words of a sum up. That's what I feel about it. It's a bit of you don't have to ask questions, and people shouldn't be put under pressure to ask questions.
Yeah.
You don't get any marks for asking questions, and it's all about marks.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the one thing I would just add to that is that I think, again, from just feedback, is don't go into the sort of what's a typical day like, because it's the same that everyone asks. You know what I mean? And it's like asking what's the weather gonna, it's like we don't know. Is there a typical day? And it's like, so it's, I think as what you said, it is really ways like, if you're going to ask a question out there, make sure it's pertinent and relevant. And as you say, and if you're, you get through the whole interview, things going well, and then you ask something that's just completely questioning the job again, they're going to, well, this person actually doesn't actually got through all this and they actually don't know what they're applying for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, it's great tips on that. I find the two sort of almost sides to this conversation quite interesting, Anne-Marie, because obviously it is not obviously in any way dismissing the first sort of part of this conversation, but it's just in, obviously, for people who aren't watching, they're just listening, the difference in your face and body language when you talk about what you do now is obviously, it's just remarkable. And I can see how much it means to you, but I can see how much I could genuinely see this with people where it's not about you, it's about the person you're helping get the job. Do you know what I mean? Is that where you get the satisfaction from when they say, oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. So this week I got 4 4 little texts.
Wow,
Yeah, yeah. 4 people
that's incredible.
and I mean, yeah, be very proud of them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Brilliant.
as you say, then, yeah. And how long, I mean, this is a question. Is it when you're prepping someone for an interview and doing that process? I'm really interested in this part of it. Is it one session? Is it two sessions? Or does it depend on the person that you're working with them?
I normally have if it's interview coaching, I normally have a face-to-face Zoom. It's all
Yep.
business is online, so it's a face-to-face Zoom, and I'm available to them for consultation up until the day of their interviews. Sometimes more is needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would offer that um, if I feel that it's needed, I would offer that, and yeah, so
Yeah. It really depends on the individual.
it depends on the individual if they need a little bit extra support around it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and yeah, it's brilliant when it works out. Then
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. And I'm just thinking of more questions now. I'm really interested in
you're
this. Is part of it also, is there an element that you're working with the person? There's obviously the content that they're going to talk about, and obviously putting themselves across. Is there any element of your coaching regarding things like nervousness, anxiety, all those sorts of things as well?
Oh yeah, but I think, that's possibly one of the first things to be addressed. You'd ask why,
Mm,
and you'd look at their
mm,
history regarding interviewing. Say, so for instance, if somebody is in, we'll say, a services section and they're dealing with the public, and they've been doing it for 25 years, and they come to you and say, "I'm very nervous about going in front of," and I say, "Okay, you've been in the service, you're providing services for somebody for 25 years. Have you had conflict? Have you had disagreement?" And they'd say, "Oh God, yeah, I could write a book on it, but yet you're nervous about going up in front of 3 people that only want the best for you."
yeah.
And you kinda change it around in that way. So, anxiety, you kind of really have to delve into that quite deeply, and you have to get them maybe to get their feedback from previous interviews and
Yes.
show them how to manage their nervousness as well. Like I was nervous about this morning, and as well as we all get nervous, but how to manage that and deep breathe, and there's
Yeah.
exercises you can do, especially, um, some people are quite heavy about it. I get them to jump around the place,
Mm,
jumping jacks in the garden before you go in and sit down, do your interview. Preparation, making sure that the back is tidy, that the dog is locked up. What you wear, how you present at an interview is very, very important.
yeah.
And that
Yeah.
perception that you're going to be a professional member of that team. You're telling the interview
Yes.
board just by your image.
Yeah.
And we discuss, colors and all the stuff,
Yeah.
all the stuff I like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Little bit of color never goes astray. And you're showing the interview board, or bringing something different to the table, like a nice colored tie or a nice top or colored top.
Yeah.
So people remember you. So we
Yeah.
do we do all of that, we have some fun with
Love
that
it.
as well.
Yeah. 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 No, I think again, it's with all of this, I think sometimes that we can want or believe that everything has or should have changed because of time being different. So we think of like the 80s, 90s, the decades. We think, oh, well, now we're in the 2020s, it must be different. And it's like, there's some are elements of difference, but foundations generally the same. It's like, the workplace may have changed, but someone's still, in a sense of, depending on the industry and the organizations and workplace attire, and I was definitely changed since when I started working. I've said it a few times on the show. When I started working, I was in financial services in the bank, and I was in a customer service role, but back office. I never saw a member of the public. If I didn't have a tie, Jesus, the manager was walking the floor to check that every man in that office had a tie on. So you'd leave a tie in your drawer because you're like, Jesus, you wouldn't be seen without a tie, because that would be something that would be pulled up on. So now that things have changed, but it doesn't mean I can go into work and look an absolute wreck. Do you know what I mean? At any point in time. So what you wear as presentation has changed, but your presentation hasn't changed. Do you know what I mean? You still have to appear in a way that's professional or
Yes.
suitable. You still have to communicate in a way that comes across. So it's like, I think sometimes we want to overcomplicate it.
Yeah, 100%.
To
Yeah.
and if we reflect on it, it's really because we're maybe that insecure, scared, worried, and it's like, great, well, we can work on that stuff.
Yeah.
That's fine. And those things, again, haven't changed. People were still insecure, worried, and anxious
Mm, mm.
throughout time as well. So it's interesting. I think it's interesting and not surprising that the fundamentals are still the same. They're still just as important.
Oh, absolutely. 100% more important, as important,
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes people overthink and,
Yes.
and get very wound up in using big words. This is the
Mm-hmm.
well, I'm saying you don't need to use the only words you need are in the job description. They're there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
led, I managed, I decided. They're all there.
Yeah.
But they
Yeah.
get very
Yeah.
hung up and trying to get them to realize that it's the simple stuff, this basic stuff done well is what the interview board are looking for.
Percent, yeah, absolutely. Because if someone is trying to say again, as I said, they think, oh, I need to impress this person, I need to use a sort of vocabulary that is just completely alien to me. They'll spot that language is completely alien to you. Then they'll be going, Jesus, well, I don't know why they said that, because they used it completely out of context. It didn't make sense, and they were just trying to use a random word. Versus, well, no, that person answered the question. And it comes back to, and I think the other thing for me is like, it's being clear on the examples. So it's kind of, as you say, it's like giving, they want to know, it's almost like the detail, and they want to know. I think the other thing, and this would be interesting from your perspective on this as well, is, and I've had a few times, it's like, don't be afraid to share when things went wrong. You've got to highlight that if something, because they could ask you, tell me a time when, I'm paraphrasing here, but when the shit hit the fan, they're not going to ask you in that way. But you know what I mean? They want to know, because they want to know then, how did you deal with that? How did you fix it?
How do you deal with it? Well, I suppose the most common one is, tell us about a time you made a mistake.
Yes.
And then again, viewees need to be careful about the double question or the treble question. Tell us about
Yes.
a time you made a mistake. What did you do? And what did you learn? So that's 3 questions.
Yeah.
So it's good to show the interview board that you're listening. So you've asked 3 questions. I'll take the first one. So I made a mistake.
Yes.
And you need to be, again, I would say, don't get the biggest mistake you've made, because,
No.
get something that you really learn from, and then name what you really learned about what. So what example could we use here today? I can't.
I'll give you one. I'll give you one, because I'll give you one from my time back in sort of, say, I worked within financial services. I worked in insurance for a good number of years, and I was in, as I say, more of a different sort of back office customer service roles and stuff. I spoke to the customers over the phone for all of my time in there, a lot of times, and it was to do with collecting premiums and things like that and stuff. And I would deal with customers after they've had claims and things. And I remember talking to this one lady, and I was sorting out her policy, and I think she was due a refund for about €30. And I was like, Grandad, I will get that sent out to yourself. And I was working away on the system, and it wasn't quite doing what I wanted it to do and stuff. And I was like, I'll do this, and basically tried to shortcut it. Let's put it that way. And I was like, coming the next day, because the system would have to overnight and all this sort of stuff. And instead of refunding her €30, the system corrected itself in a way, and I tried to bill her 900, and it collected. After she'd gone through a sort of, a claim, which is a negative experience on her side, thought it was all sorted. I'm saying you're going to get 30 quid back. I go to her account and try and take out 900 quid. And that's what I did. So that was my mistake.
Okay.
So you kind of go, so that's a kind of a bit of a, from a customer, from a systems, from an everything perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
What?
so with that was like, the first thing you have to go, well, I absolutely messed this up. You own that. So I was like, next day I was like, Jesus, go tell my manager I did this. Own up. You have to go straight away and go, I've done this. Go to the people that I needed to, my other colleagues who knew how to fix the system to get it correct. And then you have to front up and call the customer and go, was just talking to you yesterday, said I was going to do this. I've actually done this. I am really sorry about that. This is what I'm doing now. And you kind of, so you kind of have to, you immediately, whatever it is, own it, own up.
Yeah.
That's the
Honesty
biggest learning. Honesty and truth.
with
Honesty and truth. Every level, you apologize to the manager because you did it wrong. You record it if there's an official system that you have to record it on or whatever, depending on workplace practices and all this sort of stuff. But this is in your personal life. If you've done something whether it's whether your partner, your children, your parents, whatever, it's like you got to do it though, because they'll find out. It'll
Yeah,
come at some point.
Trust. It's about trust with the
Totally.
customer, the end user, and it's about building trust with your manager and all of that.
Whoever it is, you know.
So what was your biggest learning from that?
The biggest learning that I say when I think about experience is like, don't try and take shortcuts.
Okay.
Do what you know what I mean? Because it's like you want to in that situation you want to kind of be the sort of it's don't try and be the hero. Just do the job. Just try and get it done. If it takes, because you want to think, I want to get it done really as quickly for this customer. It's like, if it's going to take a few more days to get it correct, do it.
Yeah.
Don't try and take the shortcuts. Talk to the people that you need to talk to. If it's outside of your control, talk to the colleagues that you need help with. Let them do what they need to do. Give expectations that are realistic. If it's going to take longer, the customer wasn't jumping down my throat. They were happy. So it's like, don't try and sort of get the home run every time. Don't try and think that this has got to be that solo effort or it's ego.
Yeah.
Pure ego. You know what I mean? You have to just, and then it's like, and so it's that thing of sometimes like procedures are in place for a reason.
100%.
Processes are in place for a reason.
And in an interview answer, I get you to get to that fairly quickly.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. So
great example.
So that's one, and that's one I've used because that happened a number of years ago. So whenever I've gone for like roles and stuff, it's like that's kind of a go-to one because it's got real elements of it. But I think it's also as well that in this context, in the sense of a wider context of work, and we're talking about interview things. But again, I think you could take that wider in the sense of from a life perspective. It's like, where are those other moments in your life where you kind of where now I would kind of go, oh, am I doing that again? Am I trying to take a shortcut here? Am I thinking about me looking great in this moment versus this is the thing as well. It's like I think in most roles, most things we do in life is about other people, about how are we serving or helping other people. It'd be the same situation or worse situation, arguably. It's like you're trying to coach someone and you go, oh no, do it this way. Do it this way. Because it's about me then. I told you to do it that way, didn't you? And you got it and it worked. And it's like, no, it's about enabling the person to find their right way. You can give them some tips. You can give them some advice. You give them some suggestions. But it's not about me getting you your job. It's about me getting you out of your own way to get that job. As soon as we make it about ourselves in anything, that's to the detriment of someone else, that's when we kind of go. And it's the little things.
It's the little things.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to realize, especially if it's a promotional interview or whatever, that they're the experts. I'm not the expert. You know, and you just have to give up. You have to say,
yes,
okay, I'm just giving you a format here. We'll say the STAR technique, situation task, or for a presentation, I'm just recommending just this type of information on the PowerPoint, but you're not the expert. They're the ones with the expertise sometimes, especially if it's an internal interview, you know. Yeah. I would say that interview coaching, executive coaching, leadership coaching, career coaching, they're all about one thing, life. I would say that my interview coaching, my career coaching, it's not about that overall. It's about life. Some people say it was more like life coaching. They come back.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I agree, and I think it's, and I've done it so many times with people, and I'm usually the same. It's like where they come to because of this is the thing. This is the reason I'm coming to you is because of X, and you go, great. Let's work through that, and then after Could be one conversation, two conversations, maybe three, and they go, it's not about X at all. It was really about Y. But X is still important because that's the thing that we're going for. But it's not necessarily the reason why we're actually having this conversation. But it's for the person to reveal that self and to understand it about themselves. And then they go, oh, right, yeah, because the reason I'm not able to, because I'm sure you've had it, it's like, I keep going for jobs or I keep going for this and I just can't get at it. It's like, it's a little bit reflecting on your own story. It's like, well, if I don't deal with this other stuff,
Yeah,
and
100%.
it's also, and I'm not trying to conflate, because it's this, I think I've said it a few times in the show as well, that experience is relative. Life experience is relative. So for someone who's their life experience might be, not in a way, I don't want to say be flippant or traumatic, if that makes sense. It's not, they've not had something that's the, for example, the experience you've had, but something that they may have experienced is traumatic for them. So the relative experience for them is, they're kind of still in that, you go, Jesus, you almost want to go shake yourself out of it. You've not been, but you can't, you know what I mean? Because for them, it's pure relative.
You have
So
to
it's,
get them to recognize it, yeah. I've often
yeah,
had a number of clients coming to me and they say, I want this job, I want this job, I want this job. And I've gone for it, like you said there, a few times, and I have failed and I get knocked back in my confidence. And next thing, you take about 45 minutes. And they realize, next thing, they're very honest again. They say, I actually realized I don't want it. I never did want it. So then the client has to make a decision whether they want to proceed or not. And so, yeah, so as you said, it's not about X. It could be about,
no,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I'll share one experience I had with a coaching client a number of years ago, and it was about, again, coming into sort of, there was an element to do with career, and he was just wanted to get a move job from where he was, because he was like, oh, I just want to get, kind of do what the same is fine, just maybe try and get better pay, and it was all very sort of arguably surface level, just wanting maybe better hours and stuff, and it was in the sort of, I'm not disclosing it, but world of IT is the best way I can describe it. And I was like, okay, grand. We met a couple of times and stuff. And he kind of still was just like, not really, I was like, not really enthused about, and I was like, you don't seem to be that buzzing for like a new job. There wasn't a particular company that was like, I really want to work for them or role and that. And it was interesting. It was about the third session I was with this person. And he says, and I was like, oh, is there anything else that question of anything else you just want to, you talked about or thought about? And he says, I've always been interested in social care. It's nowhere near IT. And then when we discovered it, is like, he had this thing about working in social care, working with young people in social care and all this sort of stuff. And he's like, oh, whenever I mention this to my family, they laugh at me. And you're going to go, because his whole persona, his whole thing was built, and he put himself into this IT man box or person box, and this sort of interest discovery that he had about this other particular industry who people are crying out for as well. He was like, shut himself off of it because of what the people closest to him
yeah.
had.
That's sad.
It is brutally sad.
Very sad.
So so it's exactly the point that you said about, I'm going for this job, or going for this, and it's like, but I don't really want to do it. The same way when I did that example of that, my own experience of that, that job thing is like, it took me a number of years to realize that I was good at that job, but I didn't care for it. You know what I mean? And it's so there's an element of all of this stuff we're talking about of like, there's also a bravery in relation to want to go for something that you really want. There's a bravery to realize, actually, I don't want it.
Yeah, there is.
And I'm going through the motions.
What I find actually in that instance, and as a coach, you have to manage this. You have to kind of warn them. When a situation like that arises, I say, okay, we'll do a cost benefit analysis.
Mm,
And the question in the cost benefit analysis is very important. And it is, do I want the job or not? And then we'd have the box. I get them to rate it from 1 to 10. And then the result comes out. What are the advantages of going for it? What are the disadvantages of going? What are the advantages of not going for it? What are the And then the answer then, I said, look, the answer is going to be instant when we add them up. And sometimes they say, okay, yeah. And sometimes the answer is, no, I don't want it. I really don't
yeah.
want it.
Yeah.
And to have to
And
manage
that's
that
yeah,
disappointment then that
yeah.
so then yeah. Yeah.
Because I think it's because I think that when that situation began, it's like it's then that person, it's their fear of having to go then tell their partner, family, friends, "Oh, actually, I'm not going to do that. I actually really want to do this." And they look at them like they've got 10 heads, but you've never mentioned that before. And there's good reasons because of the fear of judgment, the fear of what all these things that come out. Yeah, but I love the fact that you call it, it's a sort of cost benefit analysis, because those are pretty. I was just talking to, again, my wife about this last night. My two favorites in the sense of the world of coaching is like, what are the benefits? What are the costs? And you can use that in so many aspects of your life. When you really think about what are the benefits of doing this? What are the benefits of not doing this? What are the costs of doing it? What are the costs of not doing it?
Yeah.
That gets to the heart of it.
Yeah.
Really does.
It doesn't matter, like, you don't have to have 5 in one and 5 in the other.
No.
And the costs could be huge and, they could all be 10 and all that. And sometimes, there's massive disappointment and they have to tell the husband or the wife or whatever, and they could be a bit upset. But the relief
Yes.
as well, like, they're kind of
Yeah.
going, "Okay, yeah," you know?
And that's the point that I was just literally, you just said it there. It's like when that person does get to that point of actually say, I don't actually want to go for this role, or I don't actually want to be within this industry. And because obviously from a coach, you're not there to judge. You go, there is the question. It's like, okay, so what does that mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And they go, Jesus, yeah, I feel lighter, freer. You know what I mean? Because it's enabling them to giving them that space that they can say those things without someone having a sneer or a judge or a what have you. You can, and I think I'm sure you can see it in them, literally see it in them.
Yeah, you can see and you'd say, "What's the feeling now at the moment?" You tap into,
Mm,
"Tell me, what's your gut telling you?"
mm,
And, they come back and they say it's relief or whatever. So then we kind of sit with that for a while, and then I coach them around, what are you going to say to your partner or to your husband?
yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah,
and, and all of that. But look, coaching is about helping people become better. If it's not going for a job and makes their situation better, you know,
yeah.
isn't, that's,
Yeah, and I think as well, once people understand what they don't want, sometimes it can make it easier to understand what they do want.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And sometimes it's staying in the role that they're in,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
maybe some adjustments around it, yeah. So, yeah, coaching's an interesting,
Yeah,
I enjoy
Y-
it.
yeah. No, geez, I can see it, and I can and feel it from yourself. Absolutely. So no, I know I can see how much, and it's a space that's obviously, especially at the interview side of it, that's obviously required and is beneficial to those people. So it's wonderful that you're
Yeah,
helping those people in that situation.
yeah, thank you.
Anne-Marie, there's always a few questions I'd like to ask every guest that come on. So it's just a few to wrap it up. So the first one I like to ask is, one of those people that I do love a quote. I love a phrase. I can think they can be quite powerful. Are there any quotes or phrases that are important to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I have 3 that I'm gonna
Go for
mention.
it.
I just
Yeah.
remember, when I had left Opus Dei, I remember being in a bar, the Atlantic Bar in Kenmare, and my heart was broken. It was a Sunday afternoon, the sun was shining, and I didn't know where I was gonna go next, but I saw this quote up on the wall and a torn poster, and, I remember it was, "What seems like the end could actually be a new beginning." So that was one thing, and I remember just there was a bit of hope for the future.
Mm.
It was just settled. That was my first quotation. And then Mel Robbins, yeah, the quotation is, what is it? It's all down to you. You take responsibility. No, oh, sorry, no one's coming. No one's coming. It's all on you. And I think I realized that, in my late 30s, early 40s, that I was the one that had to sort my life out, you know.
Mm.
And then it's on my website. It's by Mary Engelbreit, and it is, "The goal you are seeking is within yourself." So sometimes we're doing this and we're doing that, and we're wondering what people outside are thinking about us, and we're doing, but it's all in here, you know. All our resilience, our resources, our confidence, it's all in here, and we just have to get it out. and present it to the world, So they're my three
Yeah,
quotations.
love it. Yeah, love them. The last one just immediately reminded me of The Alchemist.
Yeah,
Yeah, the great parable, and so yeah, no, I love them. No, I
yes,
can see the first one there. You say that how powerful that would have been in that moment as well. The sort of the end is essentially a new beginning is a huge,
yeah.
huge boost.
22, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Who would you say have been the biggest influences in your life?
Who have been the biggest influences on my life? There was people that gave me a chance, But there was one particular gentleman, I won't mention his
Yeah.
name.
No.
He gave me he gave me my first big opportunity, And I just remember I soared after that. And he just
Yeah.
saw something in me and gave me the opportunity. And I met him and I thanked him recently for
Love
that.
that.
I just said things changed from then on.
Yeah.
There was a few people that supported me along the way. I had two aunts that were both very strong characters, and one of them's her quotation was, "There's no such thing as I can't."
Mm,
And then there was another aunt, and she got an OBE from the Queen for her work with the homeless in London. But her quotation was, "You are better than this." So that those two women had a strong impact on
yeah.
me. Yeah, my
Yeah.
son, my son has my son is a very brave child. He's adopted from Russia, and yeah, so I just admire his bravery and how he deals
Mm,
with things, and
yeah.
he came home here to
Love
Ireland.
that.
And I'm sure all the sounds and everything was different.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, he's a
Love
brave
that.
lad. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I've
I
a
love
hugely
that.
supportive partner.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I love that. And I love thank you for sharing because I said before, I love the reason I asked that question as well. There was like, we can often sometimes get confused with that question that we have to look externally to people in the public eye all the time for influence. And they can serve us absolutely in the things we do, but so much of it is closer to home. Most people, it's family, it's friends, it's, say, a colleague or someone who, and I think the phrase that you said, they supported you, saw something in you. It's just, influence doesn't have to be huge sometimes. It's just a small thing that can shift you or move you. Yeah. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat to you, Emma. It really has. I have one final question for you, which is, what's important for your future?
Wow, what's in think courage maybe,
Mm,
and continuing with what I'm doing,
yeah.
helping people and maybe speaking the truth, I think.
Yeah.
And as well, facing into those older years as well, it's easy
Yeah.
to become invisible and static and all that. I think, yeah, being courageous to want to live a full and happy and cognizant and healthy life. Yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah.
love it. And well, absolutely. Thank you so much. And I think, Jesus, even just from this one conversation we've had now, I mean, I think you're embodying that already as well. What you just talking to me is being courageous. What you're doing, I think, is really is, and I wish you continued success in it. But and I do really thank you for sharing some of your story with me and what you're doing now and how you're helping people. I think it's wonderful. I want to make sure that people continue to find you and work with you and what you're doing, how you can help them with. So we'll put links in the show notes. But if you were to give a shout out now of where people can follow and connect with you online.
Okay, well, you can find me on my website, amacoachingsolutions.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, and you can find me on Instagram. And I'm
Fabulous.
happy to speak with anyone that wants any type of support. And I want to
Absolutely.
thank you, James, for wanting to speak to me, for speaking to me about my work and my book, and for, I suppose, really focusing on how coaches can help propel people to reach the best version of themselves. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
No, and I thank you for that. Thank you so much, Anne-Marie. Really a pleasure to chat to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to What's Important to You. If you enjoyed this episode, follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if it resonated, share it with someone who might need it too. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment or ask a question, and let's keep the conversation going. I'm James Dean, and I'll be back soon with another real conversation to help you reconnect with what truly matters. Until then, take care and stay curious.